Ramiz Malek's penthouse gleamed under the soft golden hue of the early morning sun, a symbol of his power, wealth, and the carefully curated life he projected to the world. Forbes had labeled him one of the most influential billionaires in the city, a man who seemed to have it all: luxury cars, a private jet, and a wife who appeared to adore him. To outsiders, his life with Alina was flawless, almost like a scene from a high-budget romantic drama. Every photograph posted on social media radiated happiness, Alina glowing with her pregnancy, smiling beside him at charity galas, designer boutiques, and private yacht parties. But behind the polished exterior, reality was far more complicated. Alina Malek, with her soft brown eyes and gentle demeanor, carried herself with a quiet dignity that drew admiration from everyone around her. She had always been loyal, nurturing, and endlessly patient, particularly as her pregnancy progressed. Yet, she remained blissfully unaware of the tension simmering beneath her husband's charming smile. Ramiz's eyes, sharp and calculating, often lingered elsewhere on Maya, his mistress. Ambitious, cunning, and relentless, Maya had wormed her way into his inner circle, exploiting Alina's kindness as a cover for her own schemes. Ramiz, ever the strategist, had discovered a unique way to manipulate the delicate balance. He forced Alina to serve Maya's whims, presenting it as an act of familial loyalty, fetching coffee, arranging meetings, even attending social functions as Maya's assistant, all while Alina quietly endured, believing she was upholding her husband's trust and protecting her unborn child. The prologue of their lives was a delicate dance of appearances and hidden truths. Alina's heart, though full of love and hope, was slowly being pulled into a web of manipulation she did not yet recognize. Every smile she offered, every polite gesture, masked the growing inequality and the emotional control that Ramiz wielded so effortlessly. The perfect facade, glittering with luxury and admiration, hid the truth that even in a palace, a person could feel trapped, isolated, and powerless. As the morning sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Alina adjusted her scarf and smiled at Ramiz, completely unaware that the life she believed to be perfect was slowly unraveling, and that the shadow of betrayal loomed closer than she could ever imagine. Alina's pregnancy, which should have been a time of warmth, care, and anticipation, had become the very instrument of her oppression. Ramiz, with his uncanny ability to mask cruelty behind charm, had transformed her most vulnerable period into a relentless chain of obligations. Each day seemed to blur into the next as she navigated the endless demands of Maya, the woman who had wormed her way into Ramiz's life like a shadow she couldn't escape, fetching documents, organizing social events, coordinating business trips, and even selecting gowns for Maya's public appearances. All of it fell squarely onto Alina's already burdened shoulders. The strain began to manifest physically first. Alina's body, delicate and carrying new life, grew tired more quickly than it should have. She would rise before dawn to make coffee for Maya and Ramiz, only to rush to appointments where she had to smile and act as the perfect hostess or efficient assistant. Her steps, once light and graceful, now carried a weight that mirrored the exhaustion pressing on her chest. Nights offered no reprieve. While her husband and his mistress enjoyed the comforts of their world, Alina lay awake, feeling the baby kick and wondering if this was truly the life she was meant to live. Emotionally, she felt a storm brewing within her. There were fleeting moments when doubt crept in, tiny dangerous whispers questioning her unwavering loyalty to a man who treated her like a servant. Is this really love? She asked herself in the mirror, staring at her reflection, trying to reconcile the Alina she knew with the Alina she had become. Yet fear held her tongue. Confrontation seemed impossible. She feared Ramiz's wrath and the potential instability it could bring to her pregnancy. Her internal struggle was suffocating, a silent battle between hope, love, and the creeping realization that her life was slipping out of her hands. Maya, on the other hand, thrived in this imbalance. Cold and calculating, she seemed to take pleasure in Alina's quiet suffering. Every missed deadline, every flinch at an impossible demand, was met with a smirk that spoke louder than words. She would subtly remind Alina of her place, making her fetch things that were not only unnecessary but humiliating, all under the guise of helping her family. In social gatherings, Maya basked in the attention while Alina hovered in the background. Her own achievements overshadowed, her voice almost silenced. The mistress's calculated cruelty was a constant reminder to Alina of the cage she had been placed in, one that shimmered with luxury on the outside but was lined with fear, exhaustion, and helplessness within. Despite everything, Alina continued to endure. Her love for Ramiz and her unborn child anchored her, even as she silently dreamed of freedom. She began noticing patterns in the manipulation, small inconsistencies in Ramiz's behavior that made her heart ache with confusion and betrayal. And though her body ached and her spirit wavered, she held herself together in public, masking her despair behind polite smiles, careful words, and a resolve that seemed unbreakable to anyone who glanced her way. Yet inside, the cracks were forming, cracks that would soon demand a force strong enough to shatter the illusion completely. Alina had long endured the subtle manipulations and exhausting demands, but one evening, the thin veil of patience she had carefully maintained began to tear. As she arrived at Ramiz's corporate gala, holding her growing belly with a sense of weary pride, She noticed the calculated glances exchanged between him and Maya. There was a cold gleam in Maya's eyes, a signal that something far more sinister, what was unfolding than just personal control or petty humiliation. For the first time, Alina realized that this was no longer about errands, appearances, or small social tasks. It was a deliberate scheme designed to undermine her influence in the company and tarnish her reputation among the elite. The tension in the air was suffocating. Maya had assigned Alina an impossible task, organizing an entire networking segment of the event, coordinating schedules for high-profile clients, and simultaneously ensuring that Romy's image remained untarnished. It was a feat even the most experienced executive would struggle to manage. Alina worked tirelessly, her hands trembling with exhaustion as she moved from one responsibility to the next. Despite her best efforts, a minor oversight, a misprinted seating arrangement, became the perfect ammunition for Maya. In front of dozens of influential business people, Maya called out Alina's mistake with a venomous smile. The guests' polite murmurs escalated into whispers of pity and judgment. "It's astonishing," Maya said, her tone laced with mock sympathy, "that someone in her position could make such a careless error. Surely the stress of pregnancy isn't an excuse." Alina's face flushed crimson, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. She wanted to defend herself, to explain the circumstances, but the weight of humiliation and fear for her unborn child silenced her words. Inside, a storm raged. How could the man I love let this happen? How long has this been planned? Alina's mind swirled with betrayal and disbelief. Each polite smile she had offered to Ramis now felt like a lie, a mask that had protected her from seeing the truth too soon. Frustration gnawed at her chest, mingling with the shame of being publicly belittled. She felt trapped between societal expectations, her pregnancy, and the cruel games of a husband who should have been her protector. The gala ended, but the humiliation lingered like a shadow, pressing on her shoulders. Alone in her car, Alina allowed herself a moment of vulnerability, tears slipping down her cheeks as she whispered, "I trusted him, and he's turned my life into a spectacle." This was the breaking point, the moment when the perfectly maintained facade of their lives shattered in her mind. What had once been silent endurance now ignited a spark of awareness. She could no longer ignore the depth of Romeo's and Maya's deceit, and something inside her began to stir, a mixture of fear, anger, and the first faint glimmer of defiance. Serena Malik had always been the mirror image of Alina, though their lives could not have been more different. Where Alina's world revolved around love, loyalty, and domestic gentleness, Serena had carved her path in the ruthless corridors of global business. As the CEO of a multinational corporation based in London, Serena exuded confidence and authority, commanding boardrooms and negotiations with the same ease that most people took to breathing. She was sharp, decisive, and fiercely independent, a product of circumstances that had forced her to grow up quickly after the twins had been separated in childhood. Due to family turmoil. From an early age, Serena had learned to rely on herself. She had built her empire brick by brick, using every setback as fuel for her ambition. The memory of losing Alina, her identical twin, had haunted her for years, a bittersweet ache that never quite faded. She had always wondered how Alina had fared, whether she had thrived or merely survived in the shadow of the family she had been denied. And now, years later, fate had provided a subtle clue. A mutual friend, careful in words but blunt in intent, had hinted that Alina's life was far from perfect. The friend spoke in hushed tones about Alina's exhaustion, the pressure she bore, and whispers of manipulation that had begun to gnaw at her spirit. Serena's pulse quickened. The thought that her sister, her mirror, was suffering ignited a fire she had never felt in boardrooms or financial dealings. She immediately began gathering details discreetly, piecing together Alina's life from subtle hints, social media posts, mutual acquaintances, and whispers from the city's elite circles. It was a portrait of quiet suffering, painted with invisible strokes of manipulation, humiliation, and exhaustion. Unable to bear the thought of her sister trapped any longer, Serena arranged a secret meeting. Alina, cautious and fearful, agreed to speak only through encrypted messages. When they finally connected via video call, the emotional weight between them was palpable. Alina's eyes, once soft and trusting, were now shadowed with fatigue and heartbreak. Serena's gaze, fierce yet tender, took in the full toll of her sister's ordeal. "I didn't know it was this bad," Serena whispered, her voice trembling despite the control she usually commanded. Alina's lips quivered as she nodded, unable to articulate the torment she had endured. They shared a long silence, the kind that bridges years of separation, pain, and unspoken love. It was a tense, fragile moment, a mix of relief and despair, hope and fear. In that exchange, a silent pact formed. Serena's presence became a beacon of hope for Alina. The possibility that someone strong, someone who understood, was ready to stand by her. The reunion, though virtual, sparked a renewed sense of courage in Alina. The spark of resistance that had flickered faintly in her heart now blazed brighter, fueled by the knowledge that Serena, her twin, her counterpart, was ready to fight alongside her. Serena Malik's arrival in the city was quiet, almost ghost-like. No one in Rami Malek's glittering social circle suspected that the poised, confident woman attending his corporate meetings as a business consultant was, in fact, the twin sister of the very wife he had been manipulating for months. Serena understood the importance of secrecy. Any hint of her identity would alert Ramis and Maya, sending Alina deeper into danger. She had prepared meticulously, studying Ramis's business habits, Maya's social influence, and the patterns of Alina's daily life from afar. From the moment she set foot in the Malek penthouse, Serena's eyes missed nothing. She noted the subtle gestures of control Ramis instructing Alina on how to arrange Maya's wardrobe, the careful monitoring of Alina's interactions at corporate events, and the unspoken hierarchy that placed Alina as subordinate to Maya. Serena observed Maya's behavior with a critical eye, the way she smirked when Alina faltered, the cold precision with which she manipulated social and professional situations, and the quiet, almost imperceptible signals she sent to Ramis that confirmed their alliance that to gather concrete proof. Serena relied on her intelligence, charisma, and meticulous planning. She slowly built rapport with key figures in the Malek organization, using the guise of her expertise to move unnoticed through offices and boardrooms. A loyal employee and administrative assistant named Lena became an ally after Serena subtly protected her from Maya's petty tyranny. Lena provided insider details, schedules, memos, and the patterns of Maya's escalating demands. Serena also reconnected with an old investigative friend, Adil, a private detective with a sharp eye for financial irregularities and digital footprints. Through him, she began to uncover hidden email chains, unusual bank transfers, and suspicious communications that corroborated Alina's fears. Serena's approach was methodical. She placed discreet cameras in strategic locations during consulting visits, always careful not to overstep or raise suspicion. She downloaded encrypted financial documents from shared drives under the pretext of reviewing company operations. Every piece of information collected was a puzzle piece, revealing the larger scheme orchestrated by Ramis and Maya, planned not only to control Alina but to diminish her influence in the company and solidify Maya's position. While gathering intel, Serena kept a careful balance of subtlety and presence. Her charisma allowed her to mingle with the city's elite, gathering whispers and rumors that confirmed what she already suspected. At gala dinners, she watched Rames's gestures toward Maya, noting the complicity in their smiles. At board meetings, she observed Alina's quiet compliance and the way her strength was systematically undermined. Every detail added to Serena's understanding of the stakes, sharpening her strategic mind for the confrontation that would inevitably come. Through her network, intelligence, and careful observation, Serena slowly built a comprehensive picture of the web of manipulation surrounding Alina. It was not just about controlling her daily life. It was a meticulously engineered plan to isolate her emotionally, socially, and professionally. And yet, beneath the tension, Serena felt a flicker of hope, proof that, with the right strategy, the truth could be unveiled, and Alina could reclaim the life that had been stolen from her. With Serena's arrival came a wave of change that Alina had long thought impossible. At first, the presence of her twin sister brought quiet comfort, a sense that someone finally understood the weight she had been carrying alone. But soon Serena's guidance went beyond emotional support. She introduced Alina to a regimen of physical training tailored to her pregnancy to help restore strength and vitality. Gentle exercises and stretches gradually revitalized Alina's energy, while Serena's unwavering encouragement instilled a growing belief in her own resilience. But the transformation was not only physical. Serena worked tirelessly to reshape Alina's mindset. Late nights were spent discussing corporate strategies, analyzing Ramis's and Maya's manipulations, and plotting subtle ways to reclaim her agency without immediate confrontation. Serena taught her sister to observe patterns, recognize leverage points, and assert herself in ways that would protect both her dignity and the safety of her unborn child. Every lesson, every whispered piece of advice, fortified Alina's courage. Slowly, the quiet, submissive woman who had endured so much began to see a spark of her former self, bold, intelligent, and unyielding. The first signs of her transformation appeared in small, seemingly insignificant acts of defiance. When Maya demanded that Alina arrange a last-minute extravagant gathering, Alina hesitated, then calmly refused, citing her health and the risks of overexertion during pregnancy. Maya's smirk faltered, and for the first time, she sensed that Alina was no longer entirely under her control. At work, Alina began asserting herself in minor meetings, offering opinions and making decisions that were previously dictated by Ramis and Maya. Each small victory fueled her confidence, and with every defiance her fear slowly eroded. The bond between the sisters deepened with each passing day. Serena shared stories of her own struggles, the challenges she faced growing up without a family safety net, and the triumphs she earned through sheer perseverance. Alina listened, absorbing every word, inspired by the knowledge that strength was not only innate but also cultivated. They strategized together, blending Alina's insider knowledge of the Malik household with Serena's corporate savvy, crafting plans that were clever, precise, and carefully calculated. The once isolated Alina now felt supported by a network of trust, guidance, and love. A stark contrast to the cold manipulation she had endured. The transformation manifested not just in Alina's actions but in her demeanor. Her posture straightened, her eyes held a sharper focus, and her voice gained a subtle, commanding edge that drew respect rather than dismissal. Friends and employees began to notice the change, sensing the shift from a timid, obedient wife to a woman quietly reclaiming her power. Even Ramis, whose arrogance had never been challenged, found himself unsettled by the newfound composure and subtle authority Alina displayed. By the end of the week spent under Serena's mentorship, Alina's confidence had blossomed fully. She had become a force to be reckoned with physically, mentally, and emotionally. No longer merely enduring her circumstances, she now actively shaped them. The woman who had once bowed to every whim and demand now held her head high, ready to confront the injustices she had suffered. Empowered, vigilant, and unwavering, Alina was no longer a pawn in Ramis's game. She had begun the first step toward reclaiming not just her life, but her dignity, her independence, and her future. With Alina's confidence rebuilt and strategic mind at her side, the sisters began crafting a plan that was as bold as it was meticulous. They knew that any misstep could endanger Alina, her unborn child, and their chance at justice. Every move had to be precise, calculated, and untraceable until the moment of execution. Serena emphasized the importance of patience. This would not be a swift retaliation but a carefully orchestrated revelation, one that would expose both Maya and Ramis for the manipulative, cruel forces they truly were. Their first step was intelligence, gathering not just for evidence but for positioning. Serena used her network to track Maya's habits, public appearances, and private communications. Alina, with her intimate knowledge of Ramis's moods, weaknesses, and hidden patterns, provided critical insights into timing and opportunity. Together, they devised strategies that were cinematic in scope, subtle manipulations of social events, orchestrated accidental leaks of emails, and carefully planted digital evidence that would surface at the perfect moment. One of the most daring elements of the plan involved turning Ramis's own obsession with appearances against him. Alina, under Serena's guidance, began to subtly alter arrangements in Maya's favor, creating minor incidents that hinted at incompetence on Maya's part while ensuring they were caught on hidden cameras. These clips, once pieced together, would tell a story impossible to deny, an accumulation of cruelty, manipulation, and betrayal, all documented in real time. Every gala, every meeting, every social gathering became a stage where the sisters could control perception, planting seeds of doubt among the city's elite simultaneously. They explored legal channels, identifying loopholes and vulnerabilities. In Ramis's corporate empire, Serena consulted lawyers discreetly, uncovering irregularities in Maya's and Ramis's professional dealings that could be exposed without risking Alina's safety. Financial transfers, unauthorized approvals, and hidden contracts began to surface through careful digital leaks orchestrated by Adil, the investigative friend. These documents were like pieces of a puzzle that, once assembled, would leave Ramis and Maya exposed and defenseless. Despite their meticulous planning, tension simmered beneath the surface. Ramis, ever perceptive, began noticing subtle changes in Alina's behavior, the way she hesitated before responding, the brief flickers of defiance in her eyes, the unexpected calm in situations that would have previously flustered her. Yet he underestimated the sisters. His arrogance blinded him to the calculated patience and resilience that Alina and Serena now possessed. He interpreted her newfound poise as temporary confidence, never suspecting that it masked a carefully crafted strategy designed to dismantle his empire and reputation. Alina's internal conflict added another layer of suspense. Each step forward carried risk, not just for herself, but for the life growing inside her. Every hidden camera installed, every piece of evidence collected, meant a possibility of discovery, humiliation, or retaliation. She struggled with guilt, fear, and the intense desire to protect her child, balancing maternal instincts against the burning need for justice. Serena provided guidance and reassurance, but the emotional weight of responsibility rested heavily on Alina's shoulders. That is, the sisters refined their plan. They rehearsed contingencies and escape routes, anticipating every move Maya or Ramis might make. The tension was palpable. Each interaction became a calculated test, each conversation a potential trap. Yet, beneath the suspense and danger, Alina felt a sense of empowerment she had never experienced. She was no longer a passive victim but an active force, wielding intelligence, courage, and determination. The stage was set for a confrontation that would be both public and undeniable, a reckoning that would leave no doubt about who held the power and who had been deceived. On quiet moments, Alina allowed herself fleeting glances at her growing belly, drawing strength and resolve. The stakes had never been higher, but neither had her determination. Together, the twins had created not just a plan for revenge, but a path toward liberation, justice, and reclamation of dignity. The countdown had begun, and the perfect facade of wealth, control, and manipulation was about to crumble under the weight of truth. The grand ballroom of the city's most luxurious hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers, expensive floral arrangements, and guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. It was the perfect stage for Rami Malek's carefully cultivated image of wealth and power, a world where every smile was calculated, every conversation a performance. Yet beneath the glittering surface, a storm was brewing, orchestrated by none other than the woman he had underestimated all along. Alina, radiant in an elegant, understated gown that accentuated both her pregnancy and newfound confidence, walked into the gala with Serena by her side. Their presence alone commanded attention, a quiet force of composure and determination. As the sisters surveyed the room, they noted Rami's laughing alongside Maya, his hand casually resting on hers, both unaware that every subtle gesture had already been documented, every interaction secretly captured for the perfect moment of exposure. The sisters' plan unfolded seamlessly. Hidden screens in the ballroom suddenly flickered to life, displaying a series of videos, emails, and recordings collected over the past weeks. Maya's smirks, her cruel manipulations, and Ramiz's cold complicity were projected for all to see. The audience gasped as each clip revealed acts of deceit, abuse, and manipulation previously concealed behind the luxurious facade. Maya's face, once so composed, paled with shock. She tried to regain her composure, but the evidence was undeniable. Every subtle cruelty laid bare for the elite to witness. Alina's voice cut through the stunned silence, calm yet powerful. For months, I endured humiliation, manipulation, and control in the very house I thought was my sanctuary. Every smile you saw, every gesture was carefully orchestrated to hide the truth. Tonight, it ends. Her words resonated through the room, echoing against the marble floors and crystal chandeliers as Serena stood beside her, radiating strength, her eyes fixed on Ramiz and Maya. And justice, Serena added, will no longer be something you can manipulate or escape. Maya attempted to respond, but her voice faltered as the room turned against her. Whispers of disbelief spread among the elite guests, many of whom had been unknowingly complicit or silent witnesses to the manipulations. Corporate advisors quickly moved to freeze Maya's influence within the company. Legal representatives, already tipped off by Serena, began preparing formal proceedings against both Maya and Ramiz. The once untouchable mistress found herself cornered, her arrogance dissolving into panic. Ramiz, the man who had controlled boardrooms and households with equal skill, felt a rare sensation, vulnerability. His carefully constructed empire of fear and manipulation was unraveling before his eyes. Alina's words pierced deeper than any legal threat, her newfound confidence and articulate exposure of the truth leaving him morally and financially stripped. You don't understand, he stammered, his composure cracking. I did everything for our family. Alina's eyes, filled with a mixture of anger and liberation, met his. Our family. You don't get to define what family means by control and cruelty, she said firmly. I trusted you, I believed in us, but you used that trust to hurt me, to elevate her at my expense. That stops now. Serena's hand rested gently on Alina's back, a protective and empowering gesture that reinforced the unspoken bond between the sisters. As the gala descended into controlled chaos, Maya was escorted out, facing immediate professional and legal consequences. Ramiz, stunned and desperate, realized that the intricate web of manipulation he had spun was now his own prison. The financial repercussions were immediate. Investors pulled support, and key business deals that fell through as news of the scandal spread. Friends and associates who had once revered him now kept their distance, unwilling to align with a man publicly exposed as both deceitful and abusive. In a private moment afterward, Alina allowed herself to breathe, leaning against Serena with tears of relief streaming down her face. I never imagined it could feel like this. Freedom, she whispered. Serena hugged her tightly, her voice firm yet tender. You earned this, Alina. You never bowed, never surrendered your dignity. Tonight, the truth stands on your side, and nothing can take it from you. The confrontation had ended, but the impact rippled far beyond the ballroom. Alina had reclaimed her power, her voice, and her autonomy. The public exposure was not just a victory over Ramiz and Maya, it was a declaration of her strength, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between twin sisters who refused to let injustice go unchallenged. The glamorous facade of wealth and control had crumbled, leaving only the raw, undeniable truth. Alina was no longer a pawn, and her reign of empowerment had begun. In the days following the gala, the aftermath of the confrontation reverberated through the city's corporate and social elite. Rami Malek, once untouchable and revered, found himself teetering on the edge of ruin. His attempts at last-minute manipulation, text messages, private meetings, and desperate phone calls were met with an unyielding wall of evidence strategically compiled by Alina and Serena. Each maneuver he made to salvage his reputation crumbled, as if the very universe conspired to turn his own schemes against him. Maya, stripped of her carefully constructed image of charm and sophistication, faced immediate and irreversible consequences. Corporate boards quickly moved to sever her influence, terminating contracts and freezing any involvement she had in company affairs. Social circles that once fawned over her now kept their distance, whispering behind her back and leaving invitations Say the woman who had enjoyed so much power and control now experienced the public humiliation she had once delighted in inflicting on Alina. The fall was swift, complete, and undeniable. Rami's financial empire, meticulously built over decades, faced a parallel collapse. Investors and stakeholders, alerted by Serena's carefully orchestrated leaks and legal counsel, withdrew support, assets were frozen, business accounts scrutinized, and partnerships dissolved under legal advisement. Even his most loyal allies hesitated to intervene, realizing that aligning with him now carried the weight of scandal and public disgrace. For a man whose identity had been tied to wealth, status, and control, the loss was profound and shattering. Through it all, Alina stood at the center of the storm with calm determination. No longer the obedient, manipulated wife, she now commanded respect from colleagues, friends, and even former skeptics who had witnessed the unraveling of the truth. Her resilience and intelligence became a beacon of inspiration, showing that strength could emerge from even the most oppressive circumstances. Public recognition followed, business partners sought her guidance, media outlets praised her courage, and her reputation as a woman of dignity and influence was firmly cemented. Amid the corporate and social upheaval, Alina and Serena reunited with the allies who had supported their cause. Lena, the loyal employee, expressed relief and admiration for the sisters' courage. Adil, the investigative friend, offered quiet congratulations, knowing the meticulous strategy had worked flawlessly. Together, they celebrated not with frivolity, but with a profound sense of relief, empowerment, and justice fulfilled. Every smile, every shared glance, conveyed the satisfaction of a battle won against manipulation, cruelty, and betrayal. Alina allowed herself moments of introspection, thinking of the journey that had brought her here, the exhaustion, the humiliation, and the silent strength she had cultivated over months of relentless struggle. The triumph was not just about the downfall of Maya and Rameus, it was a testament to her own resilience, the power of strategic thinking, and the unbreakable bond. With Serena, the sisters had turned adversity into opportunity, using intelligence, courage, and unwavering determination to reclaim what had been stolen from them. In the end, justice was not merely a legal or financial concept, it was an emotional and moral victory. Alina's dignity had been restored, her voice amplified, and her strength celebrated. The world had witnessed her transformation, and those who had doubted her now recognized the force she had become. The storm had passed, leaving clarity, respect, and empowerment in its wake, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Alina's life, one defined not by manipulation or fear, but by courage, resilience, and triumph. The morning sun filtered softly through the hospital room, casting a warm glow on Alina as she held her newborn daughter for the first time. The gentle rise and fall of the tiny chest beneath her hands was more than just a sign of new life. It was a symbol of resilience, triumph, and rebirth. Tears streamed down Alina's cheeks as she whispered her daughter's name, feeling a depth of love and hope that had been absent from her life for far too long. This was her victory not just over Rameus and Maya, but over the fear, exhaustion, and oppression that had once defined her existence. Serena, standing beside her, smiled with pride and relief. The bond between the sisters, tested through adversity and strengthened in the fires of strategy and defiance, had proven unbreakable. "She's beautiful, Alina, just like you," Serena said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her sister's face. Alina returned the smile, feeling the weight of the past months dissolved in the warmth of family, love, and the promise of a new chapter. In the weeks that followed, the sisters poured their energy into rebuilding not just their personal lives, but their professional and philanthropic endeavors. Serena's multinational corporation and Alina's influence within the city's business elite merged seamlessly, creating a powerhouse that combined expertise, vision, and a commitment to ethical leadership. But their most cherished project was the launch of a foundation dedicated to supporting abused, betrayed, and vulnerable women. It was named the Malik Foundation for Empowerment, a symbol of transformation and hope. Through mentorship programs, counseling services, and financial support, they aimed to provide a lifeline to women who had faced circumstances similar to Alina's, turning personal trauma into collective empowerment. As the foundation grew, so did Alina's confidence and public recognition. She was no longer the woman overshadowed by manipulation and cruelty. She was a leader, a mother, and a symbol of unwavering strength. Media outlets covered the foundation's launch, highlighting Alina and Serena's journey from adversity to empowerment. Headlines celebrated their courage and vision, emphasizing the sisters' ability to turn personal tragedy into a force for societal good. Even former skeptics and colleagues expressed admiration, acknowledging the transformation that had elevated Alina from victim to role model. On one quiet evening, Alina stood by the balcony of her penthouse, her daughters swaddled gently in her arms. Below, the city lights shimmered like stars scattered across the urban horizon. A television in the background displayed news coverage of Rami Malek's downfall, the legal proceedings, asset freezes, and public disgrace that marked the culmination of his manipulation and abuse. Alina's gaze was steady, filled with a mixture of calm satisfaction and protective love. She whispered softly to her child. "They thought they could break me, but strength runs in our blood." The moment was emblematic of everything Alina had endured and achieved. It was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of unwavering support from those who truly care, and the ability to transform adversity into empowerment. Holding her daughter close, surrounded by the presence and guidance of Serena, Alina felt an unprecedented sense of peace. The past, though painful, had forged a future rich with hope, dignity, and the promise of positive change not just for her family, but for countless women who would benefit from the foundations. Worked in the soft glow of the evening, Alina allowed herself to envision a life unburdened by fear or oppression. Her strength, honed through suffering, had become a guiding force, and as she held her daughter, a living symbol of rebirth, courage, and legacy, she knew without doubt that the story of her survival, resilience, and ultimate triumph would continue to inspire, empower, and uplift for generations to come.